I guess after I found out about you, I didn't really realize the impact that you kind of had on the startup ecosystem in Sri Lanka. But when you look at it over the last decade or so, you built this trifecta of like organizations. So the capital through BOV Capital, Lankan Angel Network, and then Venture Engine, I think, which you started a little bit later. And I think obviously all those three components are quite important to kind of building this long-term momentum of startups in Sri Lanka. But can you tell us like why you started? I mean, I know some of it's self-evident, but like how those pieces fit together
Sure.
towards this grand vision you're kind of building.
So have you heard of this thing called the startup funding cycle?
Maybe
Mm.
break it
I,
down.
I didn't hear of this before 2005 either, right? So
Okay.
for me, it was all Greek,
Yeah.
right? Because I came from a different background. Okay, I knew my business, but startups was a new breed, right? So for me, it was a learning curve as well, right? So there's this thing called the startup funding cycle. So you have, if you have the X and Y, you have a graph that goes to that and goes up, right? So this area is called the valley of death, which is the negative side. And that's where they call it the family, friends, and fools who invest initially, right? And as you say, right? And because the risk is so high, and then you have the angel investors investing, then you have the venture capitals, private equity, and the mezzanine zone where the banks and all come in, right? So, so this area called the Valley of Death never existed in Sri Lanka. And so when I was exploring options, I was also researching in terms of how we should go about creating an ecosystem because this ecosystem never existed here. It was quite mature in Silicon Valley and the US, right? But it was mature in a lot of countries. But in this part of the world, even Singapore didn't have it. India was just starting it, right? This is back in 2005. So when we were researching through this, when we created BOV, the goal of BOV Capital or Blue Ocean Ventures, formerly known as Blue Ocean Ventures, was basically look at how we can bring the ecosystem together. So to bring the ecosystem together or build the ecosystem, to build the ecosystem, basically you need the family, friends, and fools, you needed angel investments, and then you need venture capitals. And then you needed entrepreneurs on the other side. So investors on one side, entrepreneurs on the other side. Right? And the entrepreneurs were the innovative guys who were, I mean, there are entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. So there are SMEs and there are startups. So SMEs to me mostly are like the companies that have been there all long, low-hanging fruit, selling apples to somebody or something like that. Whereas a startup would take the apple, make it into a juice, make it very innovative, do something very different with that, right? So that's the simple example I'll give the difference in terms of the difference between an SME and a startup. So what we wanted to do was encourage entrepreneurs to think differently, think innovatively, use technology, and apply to us. So we didn't have any of these available to us at that time. Even the entrepreneurs we looked at, I mean, we had a few companies, as I said, the MITs, the WSO2s, who had done something and moved on. So we were trying to see how we could create the awareness, right? And then came, so at the first 2 years, 2009, 2010, when we were exploring, we were a bit stuck because we had a little bit of money with Blue Ocean. My partner and I put a little bit of money, and we thought, okay, a few friends who came in and put a little bit of money. And we were waiting with a kind of like, we had the money, but it was like our begging bowl waited to give money, and nobody wanted it because they were all wondering why would you want, why would you want to invest in our business? And that was the mindset. And then I had to sit and explain to them, look, you know what, we can help you grow. I mean, and their mindset was, no, you're going to take over my business and kill me. And that was how it was before 2009, right? With the ecosystem, the mindset of entrepreneurs was exactly that. And I suppose that was similar to what was in South Asia also. So then Indian Angel Network had done a similar program like the Venture Engine. And they came and partnered us and said, why don't we run a platform and invite entrepreneurs saying these are the kind of investors and, make it very an island-wide thing where you invite people and then give the criteria as to what kind of entrepreneurs we are looking for. So Venture Engine was created in 2012, and it's 10 years since. And the first year we said, this is an investment platform. This is for entrepreneurs, and investors come in and do it. And we invited entrepreneurs to come in. We had about 60 applications, 50 applications, right? And the first e-commerce company came out of that called Takas. Then we had a few other companies that there was Trecurious, there was in the fashion design brand, there was some fashion retail companies. So we had some hotels. So we had a mixed bunch of companies that came in, right? Sarai Village was Treetop Madhyalee Hotel, which we invested in. So like that, we had a mixed bunch of companies come through. And even today, we look at a mixed bunch as long as they're innovating and bringing in some kind of technology. So that was the birth of Venture Engine. And to me, that was probably the birth of the ecosystem also in some way. And when the Indian angels went back, I thought to myself, we had to have our own angel network in Sri Lanka. And in 2012, I went and created the Lankan Angel Network. Basically invited all my friends, probably some were sharks, had to baptize them as angels and say, you know, you can't do this and this and this. You have to be you have to sign this form, declaration saying that you will not be a shark going forward. You will always be an angel and help mentor and not take over 50% of a company. You know, so we had these rules that we put together. And, you know, I had a good bunch of people, and I was talking to you about, you know, knowing people, the network you have, the credibility you have. That's what I was able to leverage on when I came back to Sri Lanka. So the credibility I had with people, because of my generational background, because of the legacy that was left behind. I think the biggest legacy that was left behind for me was the credibility. So I was able to go and talk to people and say, hey, listen, I want to do this. Come and help me. And I had the best of guys who came and helped me, right? And at that time, we had the top legal firm that came in with Arita. Then we had Asiata, which Dr. Hans, people like Padmaja from the Indian Angel Network, Expo Lanka Honeydew. So there were people who collectively came and said, let's help. Yeah, we see a good cause in this. Let's do this, right? And then we created the Angel Network. And today we have over 100 angels in the network. And they are also helping with funding and co-funding too. We have a fund as well through that. And that was the beginning of the seed part of it. There are a lot of family and friends who also keep putting in. Then we created the seed part. And then we came to another stumbling block where we had to get Series A funding. So we had the seed funding, Series A. So my partner and I decided to go and again, started exploring options in terms of where should we create the fund, the venture capital fund. Should it be in Sri Lanka? Should it be in Singapore? And at that time, we didn't see it very conducive to have it in Sri Lanka because of the crises that were there. Like, I mean, simply put, the conduciveness wasn't there, right? So we created the fund in Singapore, right? But all the money was for Sri Lanka because also the investors are also a little bit more, I suppose, more happier to put the money into Singapore than bring it to Sri Lanka in one sense at that time. So we created and we showed them, we basically showed the path in terms of how we're going to invest in Sri Lankan technology companies, Sri Lankan innovation, and we clearly showed them in terms of the talent we had here. And we raised about $6 million, $7 million there and put all their money. Second fund was created here with Asia, Malaysia, and Dialogue coming in and putting, that was another $5-6 million, right? Today we are extending the fund further. So eventually our portfolio will be around, by the end of this year, it will be about $20 million. Very small, but enough to create the startup ecosystem for a small country, right? So, and that's what we look at, right? So, I mean, going forward tomorrow, we probably need a $40-50 million fund. And that's something we're working towards. So for us, we are in this game. I know we've been here 10 years, but we are in it for a lifetime, right? So because this is a journey that we are looking in terms of creating an ecosystem, not just a startup. So along the way, the startups will be built, and that's what we're looking at. And we are working collectively with everybody, right? So we make it very inclusive to make sure we work with ICTA, the Information Communication Technology Agency, which is part of the government. We work with all the ecosystem players, the accelerators, the incubators, and helping them create that. And most importantly, the investors and entrepreneurs. I think that's the key, because without entrepreneurs coming in, without the deal flows coming in, you don't have anything else. No point in talking about anything else, right? So it's very important that we have that journey with the entrepreneurs. And we have created the alumni for Venture Engine, that we have got about 30 odd alumni in the Venture Engine group. With the BOV Capital, we've got another 12 companies. So like that, we're creating the alumni too, because these guys become our brand ambassadors, and they are the ones who will talk about the programs and encourage other entrepreneurs to go forward.